So you can override your CSS by using different IDs, classes, and element selectors are again the least specific. So you can also override class declarations with inline styles. Now, inline styles you should only use sparingly. Like I can't think of any time I've used an inline style where I could have just done it instead in a CSS style sheet. So an inline style is like this. So notice that we have all this CSS over here, but over here I put style equals, let's see, border radius 0. And look at that, now border radius is gone. Even though I have all this styling over here, and this ID is the most specific, inline overrides any of that. So you generally don't ever want to do inline styling. Inline styling can be dynamically generated using Jquery or JavaScript, meaning that you use JavaScript to input styling, and that will usually occur by injecting it in your inline. But this overrides absolutely everything, even your ID. Next we have important. Forgot about important. I haven't used that as well. That was a long time since I've used important. So in your CSS, if you want to override things, and generally you only want to do this when you don't have access to someone else's code and you're only able to input code of your own. Like let's say that for some reason in a WordPress site is generally one of these. You don't have access to for some reason the theme CSS. It won't let you access their CSS. So instead, you're creating your own CSS, but they have some CSS that is conflicting with yours, and theirs is overriding yours. Well, you can forcefully override someone else's CSS by next to each property value declaration. So this is a property, and this is a value, right? Next to it, you can put important. And now let's see. I don't even know if this overrides the inline CSS too. So this will override everything else. I totally forgot. So it's actually important is the most specific, but you're not really supposed to use it unless it's like a hack, like when you don't have access to their styles. Then it's inline, which is this again, bad to use. Then it's ID, then it's class, then it's element. So they've gotten pretty specific about it. So any questions about this so far? You guys understand specificity? All right. All right, hackers. So using hex code for specific colors, this is actually pretty simple. You can use hex code or you can use actual words. It's up to you guys. This is pretty simple. Like if I wanted to add a color, let's just take this important out. Let's take out this inline. It's going to mess stuff up. Wow, it's going really slow. Yeah, okay, go. And let's take these two out. So now let's do some colors. So we have color, we have like blue. So now the text color is blue. We can do hex color, like shorthand hex color, which is like 3. You can do it the whole way. Same thing. But I think you guys have probably already learned this in design, right? Like with hex colors, with RGB. You guys understand colors pretty well, I'm assuming? Yeah, so you guys already know that stuff, right? As designers, okay. So this should all just be review. So it works the same way. And the cool thing about inspect though, for Chrome developer tools, is let's say that I have a change in color and I want to choose a color. Well, I can inspect that element, and the color it's on, I can actually click on this little icon. It brings up a color palette. Just kidding. It should bring up a color palette. Why isn't it bringing up a color palette? Ah, there we go. So it brings up a color palette, and now I can change it to whatever colors I want. and change the opacity and everything, and it gives you this RGBA. So I want it to be a little light like that. Now I just copy that and just put that into, that was my border, right? So you can use hex color, you can use RGBA, or you can use words themselves. So it's pretty cool. So for RGBA, it's red, green, and blue. So red, green, blue. This will create the color that you want. And the A is opacity, correct. The alpha is the opacity. That determines how opaque you want the image to be. So set at 1, it would be entirely opaque. Set at 0, it would be invisible. Set at, like, 0.5 would be half visible. So pretty cool. Let's see, we only have a little bit more CSS to go. RGB, yeah, so that's easy. RGB, that's it. So that was the entirety of HTML and CSS from Free Code Camp. So you guys are going to be finishing that on your own today. So most of the homework today is based on what I just went over, which is the HTML CSS. So you guys should just get through it with a breeze. You're just literally typing in like, oh, okay, this is the RGB for this. This is how you get hex color for this. So you should get through it within like a few minutes. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start using Jquery. So Jquery is where actual programming is going to start, but it starts you off pretty easy. So Jquery is a JavaScript library used to make life with JavaScript easier for developers. So this works by creating shortcut methods made using JavaScript. So JavaScript is a programming language, or technically it's a scripting language, but we're just going to consider it a programming language. Now, JavaScript enables us to do a lot of different things. It enables us to build applications, program robots, do a whole variety of things that a lot of programming languages allow us to do. And one of these things it allows us to do is also build libraries on top of it. So jQuery is essentially used as a layer of abstraction. What I mean by a layer of abstraction is it makes it easier to use JavaScript. So let's say that it would take 3 lines of code to write something in JavaScript. With jQuery, you just do it in 1 line. It's a bunch of convenience things for you to do, so you don't have to type in a whole bunch of different functionality. So how does jQuery works? So jQuery works by being included as a single file either in your directory or stored on the server. So you just download a file and either you store it on your own directory, like you just link to it from your own site, or you go to someone else's, link directly, like Google has it stored and you can just link to it. Just like you guys would link to images that are stored on someone else's hosting platform, right? Either way, you must link to the file somewhere in your HTML. Once you link to the file, you'll have access to all that jQuery has to offer. Plus, it's free. So we're going to learn jQuery by using it, and that's today's homework as well. So first, let's start off by learning what the script tags are, right? So the script the script element is used to either link a JavaScript file to the HTML file or to add some JavaScript directly into the HTML document. So, for example, if I wanted to write some JavaScript inside my HTML, I could do this. I'm going to turn off of auto run. Oh my god, it's going slow. Why is it going so slow? Okay, so we have these script tags, right? So, do you guys remember these style tags? Can anyone tell me what the style tags do? Not by itself. Jen, can you tell me what the style tags do? Mm-hmm. In your HTML, what do style tags allow you to do? Exactly. It allows you to add CSS into your HTML. So instead of having to link to a CSS file, I could just put these style tags in, and then I can just start typing in CSS. So the same thing with script tags, except instead of CSS, it allows you to use JavaScript. So let's say that you're using, here's some JavaScript. It's gonna just make an alert box pop up. So you have, I'm an alert, and I run, and look at that, I'm an alert. So you're able to run JavaScript by putting the JavaScript either in the script tags or by linking to a file. So you can do src equals, and then, you know, assets js script.js. So it links to your file. And this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be linking to our files. We're not going to be putting any JavaScript directly inside of our HTML. So does anyone not understand what we're talking about so far? How to use script tags, what script tags are? 9? Okay. Alright, so second, and it's probably one of the most important ones, is the Bling operator. Yes, it's called the Bling operator because it's a dollar sign. And no programmers just have terrible senses of humor. That's just, yeah, they have a lot of these weird things. We'll just call things like weird names. Like the whole Python programming language was named after Monty Python, and they have a whole bunch of references. I don't know if you guys know what Monty Python is, but it's this old like British comedy movie series, and they just based a lot of their programming language on that. There's also an amazing programming language called Arnold. Let's see, Arnold Schwarzenegger programming. There we go, programming language. You can program robots and the world using just lines from Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. So yeah, it's a programming language based on the one-liners of Arnold Schwarzenegger. And this can actually help you understand how programming languages work. It's called Arnold C. So this is how you this is how you this is how you start off using Arnold. You say it's showtime, and then you say talk to the hand, and then you have been terminated to end the program. Uh, it's pretty amazing, actually. And they give you what the equivalent of each one is. Like false is I lied. True is no problemo. If is because I'm going to say please. I love how else is bullshit. There's so much of this. It's amazing. These people err. Your method arguments are I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle. The most simple one, which is read integer, is the entire line. I want to ask you a bunch of questions and I want them answered immediately. So you have to type in this entire line for read integer. Now, I would actually have a ton of fun writing this, but it would actually take a long time to write. This is why we have them listed as something simple like and, which is instead knock knock. How is that a one-liner? This is a very entertaining language. Yeah, if you guys want to have fun with programming, download Arnold C and just start using it. Oh God, that's so amazing. Okay. I find that way too entertaining. Okay, so a Bling operator turns any selector into a jQuery object. And all this Bling operator does to turn it into a jQuery object is it just says, hey, find this thing. And then anything in there is now a jQuery object. So let's say that you're trying to find, you only have one element on here, so we're just going to use that. Oh, and I'm going to include jQuery. So JavaScript, quick add jQuery. So I'm just going to add that in there. So now I have jQuery. And I'm going to say, find me anything with an ID of test. And change its CSS so that the color is now red. Oh, that should be in quotes. And not those quotes. These quotes. So let's run that, see if it works. And sure enough, the text is red. Now, what happened here is we use this Bling operator, and this Bling operator has these parentheses. So we have Bling, and yes, I'll make you guys say Bling. That's the official terminology, by the way. So you say Bling, and then you say these open parentheses, then you say whatever selector that you want. So whatever you're trying to select, whatever elements you're trying to select. Now in JavaScript, this is a lot more difficult because you have to type in like a whole bunch of code to try and find an element or elements. With Jquery, you literally just type in like, okay, what do you want? Oh, I want to target anything with a class of test. Okay, done. Now, change the CSS to this. Okay, cool, done. So Jquery makes it really easy to select things. So the selector aspect is just this part, where you put the selector inside of this Jquery object. Cool? So let's say I wanted to target all the divs. What would I put inside of this Jquery object? Div. That's it, right? Now I've targeted every div. Let's say I want to target every element with a class of peanut butter. What do I do in here? Just type in peanut butter or what? Yeah, so class. So it starts with dot. So peanut butter. It'd help if I spell it right. Peanut butter. There you go. Now it targets everything with a class of peanut butter. And it's as simple as that. Okay. Another thing is document.ready. And I'm going to have you guys discuss this with your partners next and have you implement them into your project. So I want you guys to make sure you understand this. The next thing is going to be called document.ready function. Now, the document.ready function is another cool thing that runs. And the reason you use it, and it looks complicated, but essentially all it does is say, okay, come on. What the hell? Yeah, I did copy, so why is it not copying in here? There we go. All right, so document.ready says once the document, so it's selecting the document object, which is the entire page, and saying once it's ready, then run this code. So you want this to always be there in your project, in your JavaScript file. This is going to be the first thing that you put, and all your JavaScript is going to go inside here. Now, the reason for that is because you want your JavaScript to run only after your document object model has loaded. That means you want all your HTML and CSS to load first before your JavaScript loads. Can anyone tell me why? Or can anyone guess why?
JavaScript has to see the box element there, it has to see the HTML.
Yeah, it has to, it acts on the HTML and CSS, right? Or the HTML in general. The JavaScript, when it runs these functions, it's looking for these different things. So when you said before, when we did, find the div, if we're calling this JavaScript and this JavaScript is loading at the same time as the HTML and CSS, then there's a chance that this div might not even exist yet. Right? So we want to make sure that all the HTML and CSS is done loading first and then load the JavaScript. That way we want to make sure all the HTML can be accessed by the JavaScript afterwards. You can't select something that doesn't exist yet, right? You want the other things to load first. And this happens in like milliseconds. Okay, good. Any questions about document.ready? No? Okay. So document.ready, another thing it does, it allows you to put the script tags wherever you want. So normally in a file, you would have to put the script tags. Can anyone tell me where? In the where? Yes. Yeah, so normally you'd have to put on the bottom, right? Now, normally you'd have to put this on the bottom, but not skipped. Gosh. But that was only because you want everything to load first, all the HTML and CSS to load first. Now, all documents and elements inside web load from top to bottom. So HTML, CSS, and JavaScript load from top to bottom. So you'd have to put the JavaScript call on the bottom because you want everything to load first and then you call the JavaScript. But because you did document.ready, you can put this wherever you want. You can put this in the head. Because no matter what, this isn't going to load until the HTML and CSS is done loading. Okay? So another thing that allows you to do. Okay, so now I want you guys to try and implement what you learned in your project. So create a script.js file and link it to any one of your HTML files. Target 3 different elements in your HTML file using an element selector, an ID selector, and a class selector. Discuss your progress with your partner and try and explain the concepts to each other in your own words. I'll give you guys about 15 minutes for that. Not Google timer, but Google timer. So again, you guys are going to try and implement this in your own projects. last time she had some questions. She just stayed, and we just went through helping her build a project up and just answering questions. So I'll be here, so you guys can stay and ask me questions or ask.
So do we have the link for JavaScript or
Yeah. Exactly. Can you make sure the file path is correct? And as for the navigation menu, I might want you to use a plugin for that. You can use it automatically, or you can create your own way of doing it. So a plugin, like a jQuery plugin, since we're going over jQuery now, you might want to see how to utilize it because they have some amazing existing navigation jQuery plugins. And I want you to maybe try and reverse engineer and see how they built it too, because they have a code online for it too. So check out after you're done with this, when you have some free time, check out navigation menu jQuery. This would be really nice. You can't put this in front of me and expect me not to just randomly pick one up and read it. No, I'm not gonna ask you if I'm gonna. No, I'm not gonna ask you. I'm just gonna take it because that's what's gonna happen. But thank you. I appreciate you offering. Okay. So to link to it, you have M right here. Let's see. Let's see if you're doing it right. That seems right. From this file, is your jQuery.js file inside assets? Yeah. Oh, you guys, I totally forgot something really important. You guys, I messed up. I failed you. Okay, the reason I failed you, I forgot to mention you're supposed to download jQuery first. Why is it doing this? Oh, can't believe I forgot this. Okay, here's jQuery.com. So remember when I mentioned that you guys have to download jQuery, but I never mentioned how? So you actually have to go to the site, jQuery.com, and click on this little button that says download jQuery. Now, you can either download jQuery. I'm going to edit the slides. Wait, I did? Oh, why is it missing? That's so weird. I thought I did this part. Okay, so you're actually going to go to jQuery.com and you're going to download jQuery, or you can link to jQuery. jQuery. jQuery on a hosted content delivery network, such as Google jQuery. Come on. Come on. Come on. Hosted libraries. So Google allows you to just embed their jQuery script. So here's the latest jQuery. So you can just copy this. Oh. Oh. Yeah. Okay. Now where is... There we go. I'm gonna put that in a little code container. So Google can either host it for you or you can host it yourself. Either way, I'm gonna put this down. Make sure that the link to the Jquery file exists before the link to your script.js. Otherwise, your Jquery will not work. So you guys are going to have two different sets of script tags, right? You guys are going to have one script tag that's going to look something like this. Or if you downloaded the jQuery file, then it's going to be, wherever you put it, assets slash jQuery, whatever, blah, 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 min.js. Then you're going to have your script, and then it's going to be assets slash script.js. So you're going to have two of them. Sorry about that. Yeah. Oh, sorry, yeah. You download, go to top, jQuery, compress, production. Yeah. So Caesar had a really good question. There's like a whole bunch of links on the jQuery site, right? Always download the compressed production jQuery. 2. So 2.0 and later. Yes. Now you're going to link to the file. So now you have the file, so that's perfect. So now you have it. Now you're going to put it in a directory where your file can access it, your HTML file can access it. So it's essentially going to be like, imagine you have an index.html file. And then you have another folder that's going to house all your JavaScript files. So you can call that like that directory JS, or you can put it under assets, and then under that assets you can have a directory called JS. It's up to you how you want to structure it at that point. And then you just link to that file directly from there. Okay, cool. Good questions, guys. Yawning or raising your hand? Raising the roof? Yeah.
When I press this, it's so smooth.
So I think this is a copy. Ooh, also Caesar, make sure I didn't download the 1.0 or version 1. Oh, you got the 1.0? Yeah, download the 2.0 or later. Sorry about that. There we go. Yes. Perfect. So that's it. And it's going to look like a bunch of gobbledygook, and that's because it's the entire library of jQuery compressed. So it's all just JavaScript. And all of that JavaScript put together formed jQuery as a library. So you can actually make your own library if you want to, just using JavaScript. Now you're not going to have to worry about what any of that says. You're just going to link to that file. So you're going to link to it inside your project. So you're going to put this file somewhere in your project. So let's say your project has one file, index.html, and that has another folder called CSS, and that's where you put your CSS. So then you can make another file called, or another folder called what, like JS for JavaScript, right? And that's where you're going to put your JavaScript file. So then you put your what's it called, the jQuery.min.js inside that JavaScript directory, and then you're going to link to it from your HTML file. And I'll reset this too. Probably okay. Yes. step. You're on step 4 now. So now you're gonna do git status, then git add dash status, git commit, and then go. Well, you don't need to do these parts, but up to this point. So 4 through 8. Yeah.
So would it be like
Yeah. Perfect. If that's where the files are located, that's exactly how you do it.
it doesn't matter where you put that?
Where you put the file.
Put it like
Oh, okay. So another good question. So if it doesn't matter where you put it, where you put these scripts, the JavaScript files, because you have the document.ready, then generally you put it at the bottom of the head section. So generally you'll find the JavaScript files linked either at the bottom right before the body tag ends, or at the bottom of the head section of your HTML file. So again, all the metadata for your CSS files went in there too, right? So you might as well put it in the same section with the JavaScript. So it goes inside. Right. So it's inside the head, right before the end. Perfect. And make sure you guys indent them so it looks like it's inside. Yeah. Good. And don't forget, guys, you guys are going to use the element selector, the ID selector. I want you guys to select different things inside your script.js file. So once you guys have the file linked correctly, you guys are going to open up your script.js and you're going to put in all the different things we learned. So there's 3 different things. Select an element using an element selector, select an element using ID, select an element using class. be interested in reading that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to take it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It takes a long time.
Yeah, I
Like,
used to too, but I used to hate it for weirdos.
yeah. But there's really nice people too, though. There's like some really chill people. I think there's a lot of business people now, though, too.
Okay.
Yeah, especially if you're going from Pasadena to downtown LA.
Yeah.
It's a completely different crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to work in North Hollywood.
Oh.
It was nice to meet all the crazies.
That's
That
yeah.
direction.
That's you don't want to take that line.
Yeah.
That's the wrong line.
Yeah.
It actually says wrong line on it.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, you guys are doing well. Oh, okay. You just want to make sure it's organized correctly.
Yeah. Oh.
Excellent. Thank you. Yes.
So I don't have
Oh, sorry. Let me just turn off the volume. Okay. What was it?
because it's not doing anything like
Oh, so you didn't have to do this, but if you did want to try and change it, you have to use the method called CSS. Right now, if you hit save and you refresh this, and it won't do anything. It's actually napping. Yeah. Oh, nav menu A, right? Ooh, you don't want to call this jQuery.js. You want to call it script.js. Seems like jQuery.js. Yeah, that's fine. Sorry, give me a second. There we go. It has to target the anchor text. Yeah. So that's like if someone did something, then you'd want to change all the links to blue or something like that. So that's how you do some functionality. That's what we're going to go into in this class too.
so you said you did script
Yeah, script.js. It looks like they're in a wrap. It's like, wow. 15th century. It's 15th century Drake. go through it with you guys. So I'm going to structure a project on my own. And let's see if you guys did it in a similar way. So I'm going to do this through terminal, clear. Sorry, can someone turn off the lights, please? Thank you. All right, so we're going to make a directory, and we're just going to call it new project, or actually here, we already have one, cd test directory. All right, so in here, we're going to create, a JavaScript folder. So now we have a JavaScript folder in here, right? So if I went to my projects, I went to test directory, then I see this JavaScript folder in here. So that's where I'm going to put my JavaScript file, or sorry, my jQuery and my JavaScript file. So let's go to hosted libraries. So instead of like downloading it, I'm just going to use this hosted one through Google. So what I'm going to do, and I want you guys to pay attention. So what I'm going to do is open this up in Sublime. And inside, let's say another file.html, I'm just going to put that in there. Oh my god, that's huge. So I'm just going to put that in there. That's giving me my jQuery. And then I'm going to put a link to, well, first I'm going to create a file. So I'm going to create a file called, well, let's go into JS, script.js. So now I have a file called script.js inside here. I'm just going to link to it. So now it's under, let's see, JS. Yeah. Yeah. Why, what happened? Yeah, you guys can do whatever you want. You don't have to ask me permission. Yeah. And then I go to script.js. So yeah. Right. Okay, so now we have two files linked together, right? So we have this one that's linked to the Google CDN, so we don't actually have to link to it inside of our project, but you could have if you wanted to. And then we have another one that's hosted inside of our project. Cool. So now I'm going to do that. Let's see, document. Does that automatic completion work? Nope, it doesn't. Okay. So I'm just going to copy this. And I'm going to create some elements in here. So let's do some body. Let's create div. Let's create one. And let's create a couple of paragraphs. Oh, no, this shouldn't have a container header. Okay, so now we have some elements that we can call. So let's say that we want to open this, and I'm going to rename this index.html. And I'm just going to open this in here, like Chrome. Eventually. All right, there we go. All right, I'll close this. What is happening? Something weird happening with this. Where it just automatically goes to the top and it doesn't let me move it around. It's very strange. Okay. Alright, so we have our index.html file. And now we have some JavaScript that we can add to it, right? So we have our JavaScript over here. And we want to start doing some stuff with it. So right now we're just selecting different elements. So I want to select my div. My div has no CSS in it, so it just looks funky. There's nothing there. So I can't really tell if I'm selecting it or not. So right now we haven't gone into testing that out. But right now we're just going to try and select some stuff. So I'm going to try and select using a class. So I'm going to target this h1 using the class. So I'm going to do header. So we're doing this, doing this. We're not getting any functionality. We're just selecting these different elements. Then we're doing let's see, ID. Is there anything with an ID? Let's just give this one ID. This is called banana and banana. There we go. So I have three different elements that I've targeted using three different selectors. So again, this is the element selector, this is a class selector, and this is an ID selector. And that's all we're learning for Jquery for today. Now, we could learn more, but I don't want to go into it too fast, just because we're finishing up the HTML as well. So I want you guys to just work on this stuff, getting it down, understanding what's happening. And from there, we're going to finish up the basics of Jquery next week. And then we're going to start implementing some plugins and some Jquery code snippets that are common and widely used. So let's see here. Wherever that is. Come on. Come on. You don't have to go slow. Come on. Stupid. Ah, never mind. There's a little bit more Jquery, but it's actually really easy. So next, we're going to target the same element with multiple Jquery selectors. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a class using this method called add class. So now these Jquery methods, they're only used on Jquery objects. And again, Jquery objects are just this thing with a bling and the selector that you're using, right? So let's add a class. No, fruit tart. Hit save. I also kind of want to style up my page a little bit more too. So let's go to that. Let's give it some sass. Okay, so now let's see how it looks. Now it has a little bit of Sass. And I want to add some CSS, but I want to do it using Jquery. So we added a class called FruitTart. We don't have any CSS attached, so let's add some CSS. So now, where would I go to add a CSS file in here? Inside my head? Well, I could do style tags, but I want to add an external style sheet. How do I do that? Well, yeah, I link it, right? So I do link, and I just link to, well, first off, I need to create a CSS file, right? So let me create one in the terminal. So touch, oop, let me go back to here. Let me make a CSS folder. Let me cd into it. And, oh, I just created another script.js. So let me just delete that. Style.css. Okay, there we go. So now we have a style.css in our CSS folder. So then to get to it, we have to do CSS and style.css. So now we have a style.css, and I'm going to actually create this class called FruitTart. And using JavaScript, we can actually add this class to whatever element we want. And what it's going to do is going to give a background color of, I don't know, magenta? I don't know. Let's see, orange. Something weird. Color is going to be white. This is going to look really bad. Border, yeah. Let's do padding. 40 pixels. Okay. So when you add this, it gives you all this styling. So what I'm going to do is I added this class using add class FruitTart to this div. So let's see what happens when I do that. And look at that. It gave it to this whole div, right? If I do add class to something else, it'll add it to everything else too. So now I can add this class to whatever I want. Now where are my notes? Okay. Now you can also remove this class using this remove class property. So if, let's see. Generally, this is a bad way of doing it, just because it will never show this class that was added. But when I do remove class now, it'll remove that class, so it looks like nothing happened. But in fact, it added that class and it removed it. You're probably wondering, like, what the hell? Why would I even use add and remove class? Well, if something happens, like let's say that someone does an action or someone performs something, something happens, then you want this add class to run. So you generally want these events to happen, and these events cause these add class to then be added. And we're going to go into that a little bit later in the course. But that's what triggers these different methods to run. So let's say that someone clicks on something, then you change the background color and you change all these different CSS and things like that to something else. And let's say that they click on it again and it removes all that styling. So this is one way of using it. You can also change the CSS of an element. So now we're going on to CSS. So the CSS takes in two elements. Sorry, it takes in two arguments. The first one is going to be the property in the CSS. So the first one's going to be like, let's say, I don't know, margin. Can I do margin? I think I can do margin. And let me do like 100 pixels. That's going to be bad. All right. So let's see what happens. So now I just added 100 pixels of margin to the Sass using the CSS property. Sorry, the CSS method, which adds a property and value. Does anyone not understand this part? How the CSS method works? You guys understand it? It just takes in a property and a value, right? So CSS property, CSS value. Remove class, removes a class. Add class, adds the class. So it's fairly straightforward. Nothing tricky about this. The next one, you can actually add different attributes using this property method. So let's say that you wanted to add an attribute. of disabled and set it to true. Let's see if that works. And disable is usually used with like buttons. So if you want to disable a button after someone's clicked it too many times or after they've already entered a contest or something, that's how you disable it. So yeah, it doesn't work here because it doesn't really matter. What did I add it to? Added it to banana. Banana is what on here? This is the first paragraph. Yeah, so it doesn't really do anything. But if you guys want to change like properties or attributes, that's how you do it. Well, attribute has its own one. This one's more properties. It's not really that important. Okay. I won't have you guys have to practice that. I want you guys to practice this on your own. For your update, I want you guys to continue building the HTML and CSS for your project. Have at least 50% of the styling to your web application using CSS. So next week, I want 50% of your CSS done. 100% of your HTML should be done by now. You guys should all know CSS, HTML inside out by now. And then I want you guys to complete the free CodeCamp modules. So that's going to be all due next week. So the free CodeCamp modules, again, it's just going to be the HTML and CSS we went over today. And about, yeah, all of the Jquery we went over today as well. So this stuff and this stuff right here for Jquery. And I also have a separate tutorial which I made on my own just for all the Jquery that's in free CodeCamp, including the ones you guys have to do in your free CodeCamp modules. And I'll also be sending this lecture video to you guys via the breakdown as well.